Members, and welcome to the Development Committee on the 24th of May 2018. For our visitors, our usual announcement. Should we be required to evacuate the building, would you please leave the building via the nearest available exit to the chamber. Our assembly point will be in the public car park at the side of the Civic Suite. Please don't delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please don't return into the building until given permission to do so by council staff. Please also note the meeting will be audio recorded, and if you have a mobile, please put it to silent. Thank you. Right, apologies for absence. We have none, so there's no substitute members. Our non-members attending are Councillor Mr Hoy, and mine's on blank here. I'm sorry. What happened then? Oh dear. Councillor Hazelwood. Sorry about that. That's not setting an omen for the meeting. Right, minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of April 2018. You're happy for me to sign those as a correct and accurate record of that meeting? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Councillor Mr Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope I get this right. I have a disclosable pecuniary interest. See, Angela was nodding, so I got that right. Due to the proximity of my property or our property to the development, I can stay up until the council start their debate, and then we'll have to leave. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Mrs Hoy. Okay, thank you. Councillor Weston.
Just to note that my daughter has a horse. She does ride on the private farm. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay, thank you. There is an addendum for items 6 and 7. Can I just ensure all members have received and seen that before we proceed? Yeah, okay. Right, we'll start then. Item 6, which is the land between Windermere Avenue, Mallions Lane, Lower Road, Holmbridge. Mr Stranks is going to take us through this one.
Thank you, Chairman. This is one of two technical applications before you tonight, not the kind of application you see often, where in this case, and for that matter the item to follow, we're dealing with a site that has an outline planning permission, and we're talking about varying proposals for 2 or 3 conditions to the outline permission. Members will see from the report that this site is allocated from the green belt in the council's allocations plan for residential purposes, and to bring you up to speed, you will recall that outline planning permission was granted in January last year for 500 dwellings, and this is the plan from that outline site. It was an indicative plan showing the proportions and massing, but one of the features that the outline sought consent for, members will realise that an outline permission is half a permission without the detail, but you can ask for access to be considered, and this is the case here. You'll see on this drawing approved at the planning application stage, the outline stage, a roundabout was shown to form the main access into the site coming through here, and there was also a secondary access out through Mallions Lane up here. We're interested tonight in this roundabout. The County Highway Authority, if we can look at the approved roundabout detail please, the County Highway Authority considered this plan, this drawing of the roundabout that was on the other plan, and they specifically asked for a condition in the consent that this roundabout be implemented. That became condition 8, and in condition 4 of the outline permission, best practice requires us to list the approved drawings. So what we have is two conditions, condition 4 listing the drawings, and condition 8 on the request of the Highway Authority that this roundabout be built. And as you'll see, the roundabout is about 7 building widths from this property here, and it's a conventional roundabout, something like what we've seen in Hall Road and Brays Lane recently, a standard highways design, footways either side, island in the middle, and you'll see that Lower Road runs through this part here, so it's part into the site and part on the existing highway. Now, if we can see the proposed plan, when members looked at the reserved matters, which will come before you in due course, but we had a pre-app exercise involving the ward members, members requested that a bus stop be provided at this roundabout feature. Now, although that's the same roundabout, you'll see it's in a lot better detail. Because this is what we call a Section 278 drawing. The County Highway Authority, when they go to build road alterations, etc., they require a lot more detail. But the roundabout is still about 7 of those building widths from that property there. But the difference between the two, even though it's drawn by different people and agents and looks different on the plan, is this lay-by here that takes the bus out of the approaching Holbridge traffic to a bus stop that then leaves and joins that traffic before going round the roundabout and continuing in the existing route. So that the material change that's being considered by members is the bus stop provided there, which of course makes a change to the 2 conditions that we have. Firstly, the condition 4, which lists a drawing, and then condition 8 that said you build the roundabout in accordance with what we was previously looking at. What the Highways Authority now require is that this drawing be constructed under the 278, which incorporates the bus lay-by. So the nature of this type of application is that you're not looking to approve or refuse as such, but if you approve it, a revised condition 4 and 8 are produced, correcting the details, the drawing numbers in particular, and a revised decision notice has to be issued to the outline planning application, which will incorporate revised conditions 4A and 8A as set out in your report. If members were to refuse this application and disagree perhaps that the bus lay-by, the bus stop is not provided, then the existing conditions 4 and 8 on the outline permission prevail. So you'll see on the addendum, Chairman, that the views of the County Highway Authority are there. They're informal views sought to us. They wasn't going to comment because this has been sort of highway driven. But to help some of the comments that have been raised about proximity to various features in the street, like the crossings and the other junctions, they've offered us some detailed advice for members to consider there. Members will also see that there's a further 68 letters that have been received in objections that you'll see on the ensuing pages. I can also advise that the Holbridge Parish Council raised no objection to this proposal. Members can see from the informal highway view that the roundabout design, although in better detail, has been safety audited and accords with the detailed designs and industry standards. The provision of the bus stop, as requested by members, will improve sustainability. It will allow people on the bus to alight and go to the development that's proposed. And the recommendation is therefore that the revised design incorporating these changes on these drawings be worked into new conditions 4A and 8A as set out in the report.
Thank you. Mr. Houghton, David Wilson Holmes. Maximum 5 minutes. I'll let you know when you've got a minute to go.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. As you know, sort of stated already, planning permission for the highway works was consented in January 2017, and the application before you this evening is simply to allow condition 4, which lists the approved drawings, to be updated to reflect the proposed layout, and also for condition 8 needs to be revised to reflect the minor material amendment to the approved layout, which is of course the proposed bus stop. The bus stop has been proposed through a process of a fairly extensive prior consultation with various stakeholders, including the parish, council, officers and members of the district, and also Holbridge Residents Association. We were asked to provide a bus stop and lay-by effectively as a relocation and upgrade of the existing, which to the south of Waterloo Lane. Whether or not that stays in place in situ is largely up to the bus operators themselves, I should think. But we will be, if permitted, be proposing the bus stop as you see in front of you. It's in all other respects, the roundabout is as per previously proposed in terms of its the details that you see before you there show the tracking on how vehicles, including emergency vehicles and refuse lorries, etc., can accommodate or can negotiate rather the roundabout. The proposal would have no additional impact than did the previous roundabout proposed on the amenities which neighbouring residents might reasonably expect to enjoy. Moreover, the proposal will improve the accessibility and connectivity of the development as proposed, as well as significantly improving the safety for pedestrians compared to the existing facilities on offer. We also wanted to make sure that our development is as sustainable as can be reasonably possible, and the provision of enhanced public transport facilities will help address this. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Mr Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I would agree that, and we're grateful for the developers for listening to us when we did request a bus stop. As Mr Howard has said, the existing bus stop is not usable effectively, and this was a really good idea when we're pleased they did to move it to create a new bus stop, if you like. I think the only concern I have is that it has gone before the roundabout, not after, whereas I thought a bus stop after the roundabout would have been much better positioned. I've got some concerns around the bus blocking the view to the right. It's a more complex junction to the right, well, to the left as we look at it, but to the right as you pull out of the new estate. More complex junction is shown on that map actually, because you have the junction of Watery Lane with Holbridge Road there, which is now creating a sort of mid-slip road, I'm not sure what you called it, off to the right as well. And I'm a bit concerned about that's a bit misleading as well, because there isn't a roundabout at Watery Lane on the far left. The roundabout will not be there, so I think that's causing a bit of confusion. So so my concerns are that the roundabout causing disruption to the first house as you come into Holbridge on the left, and also the positioning of the lay-by, if a bus or two buses, as could frequently be the case, are in that bus lay-by at the same time, blocking the view to the right where traffic is coming out of Watery Lane or around the corner from the Holbridge Road. It's in essence really, that's what I would like the members to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Hoy, do you wish to say anything before we get started?
The only thing I really want to say is that you've got one roundabout practically on top of another mini roundabout, which, whatever way you look at it, is going to cause congestion.
Thank you. Okay, so if we open the debate up now, so I'll just wait for you to leave. Yeah. Thank you. So members, we've got what is a fairly technical item here. As far as I'm reading it, essentially it's the insertion of a bus bay into the road, and that's the technical detail that we're looking to consider. We have got informal comments from Essex Highways, but Essex Highways are the statutory highway authority, so I would caution you if you're going to comment on those. But members like Mr Hazelwood, do you want to say anything? It's your chance now.
Is that obviously there's only one proposed roundabout. The other one, Watery Lane, is not a roundabout. It's just a junction. So really that shouldn't be considered even. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Wilson then.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I too welcome the developer listening to local concerns about the lay-by. Can I just confirm first of all that the roundabout hasn't physically moved its position? So in other words, it's not moved further to the east?
Chairman, that is a view that's been expressed by a number of residents, and we've checked it as best we can. Obviously, because it's a better detailed design, I'm not saying there isn't a 0.5 metre, 1 metre distance when engineered. But if you remember the plan I first showed, which was the sort of concept layout plan, it showed the roundabout in that position, and it's the same distance from the house that the previous member referred to on the left. We've been able to step that off, that it is the centre of the roundabout is in the same position.
Okay.
I actually walked down to Waterloo Lane today. I measured the distance. I reckon it's 25 metres from the junction of Waterloo Lane, according to the scale on the diagram. So the entrance is 25 metres from vehicles approaching, which will be behind the bus. Waterloo Lane is a national speed limit, but actually they've got to give way. So they'll be coming out of Waterloo Lane relatively slowly. However, coming north along Holbridge Road, and then when it turns round to the right into Lower Road, that's actually a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. And so I share Councillor Hoy's concern about buses pulling in and then not being able to pull out. So when I look at the comments to the addendum, the informal comments from Essex Highways, when they say that there's no way that the proposed bus stop could be moved to the east of the roundabout, the only reason that they give is that there are existing facilities available to the east of the Ferry Road mini roundabout. Well, actually, although that's technically true, that's the bus stop for the 63 bus, which only runs very sporadically during the week, and also limited service for schools. So I'm not really content with the comments from Essex High because they're informal. Is there? Do we know if there are standard distances between bus stops? In other words, if this bus stop were to be on, or rather the lay-by were to be to the east of the roundabout, does that mean that it's too close to the bus stop? Is there rules of thumb on this?
Chairman, I can't help you with a specific specification for roundabouts. That unfortunately is the job of the highway colleagues at county, but I think if we go to the informal comments on Essex County Council, we won't be getting formal comments from them. We had to, if you like, prize these out of them in the run-up to this committee, anticipating members might have some questions. I think they make clear there that the preference they express, but they've been heavily involved in this design. They mention the words, it's been safety audited. So they're content, the fact that the bus stop is off the main line of the traffic, this is where it should go. He goes on to say that about the proximity of the zebra crossing, if it had gone to the other side of the roundabout, he would be then concerned about the confusion with the other features that are further up near Budgeons. So this is, it seems, the preferred location for the bus stop according to the highways.
Thank you. Councillor Steptoe.
Thank you, Chairman. Some points of clarification, if I may, please. It's been touched on with regards to the speed limit. Could we see on the drawings where the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit finishes? One of the reasons I asked that is you commented there, the officer commented there, with regards to the design of the roundabout being that of similar to the Hall Road development, where it's got like two levels, almost. It's got the bit for the big trucks to go round and then the bit for the cars to go round. Is that the same?
Chairman, I did try with the bigger drawing that we have to see whether it's a raised roundabout, and I couldn't work out. I'm not a surveyor competent enough to work out if there is a change in levels, but that red strip you see round the roundabouts that we've had built recently, which I assume are of a similar design, and it seems to show an in-outer loop. You can drive over that as a car. It's not a stay off that red band unless you're a wider vehicle. It just helps in the management and the psychology of the roundabouts. But it looks to me as though this does have an inner strip. But sometimes, like we have the ones at the airport, they're banked. But I can't, I'm not a Section 278 officer to be able to tell you whether that is banked. I think my point about it being similar to the one in Hall Road and the one in Brays Lane, give or take the specifications, is that we've seen these features in the developments that we've approved recently. And they've said, I think loosely, yes, it's going to be like the one in Hall Road, but I don't think it necessarily be identical.
Come back, Chair. The reason I raised the query is if this is on a 40 mile an hour speed limit, we are having problems and experiencing problems in Hall Road with cars now transversing that roundabout at 40 mile an hour because they can do it because of the design of the roundabout. So I have a concern on that, and I would perhaps suggest that we need to recommend back to county highways that if it's not a 30 mile an hour speed limit, it needs to be reassessed and the 30 mile an hour speed limit extended over it. With regards to the bus bay there, can you tell me whether it is a full bus bay or half bus bay? Can the bus pull right off of the road, or is it only half off the road?
Chairman, it's my understanding that is a single bus bay. I think some of the members of the public that have commented about the provision of 2 buses not being able to park in there. But my understanding is that's a single bus that would get in there. It would leave the flow of traffic gradually into here, then from a standing start would exit like that.
They're getting worse, I tell you. So, in other words, the bus can pull fully off of the highway when it's stopped for things. Okay. The other thing I'm finding very confusing, and it has been mentioned by other members, the roundabout that is shown on some drawings by the junction of Watery Lane and not on other drawings. Is that something that is part of the development and we're getting that as part of the 106, or is it just not an accurate drawing? What's the situation? I'm finding it very confusing where it's on some and not the others.
Chairman, it's both. If I can explain, the drawing you saw that was approved, the Highway Authority did not want a mini roundabout in here. There's a reason for that. They want to invest in this route out through the bigger roundabout at the junction of Rorath Lane and Holbridge Road, which this application delivers. It's not part of this scheme, but it's in the legal agreement that this scheme pays for that. Then you've got Rorath Lane, all the traffic manager through there, out onto the A1245. What they do not want to do is to psychologically encourage drivers to go around the mini roundabout and out through Watery Lane against that public investment. So they ask for improvements at this junction for right turn capability to allow traffic to pass on the inside towards Rorath Lane. They're not stopping this up. And improvements here, as you see, with right turn capability. Slight shaving off of the highway to make the lanes a little bit wider. And this application will deliver those changes, but they're subtle changes. They deliberately wanted to avoid the mini roundabout that was shown on the approved drawing. That's why condition 8 only speaks to the larger roundabout going into the site. The legal agreement then resolves this. But because this is the 278 drawing that highways are working to and discussing with the applicants, it shows the other works that these applicants will deliver.
Okay. Councillor Griffin.
Thank you, Chairman. On the drawing, I can't see a bus stop for buses travelling in the opposite direction, going westbound.
Chairman, it's not on this drawing, Claire, but the bus stop the other way is up there near Budgeons. There's a bus shelter there that is on this scale. It's up here somewhere where I've got the laser, but it's not shown to you on this point. The next stop is just as you turn past Budgeons in Ferry Lane, Ferry Road going into Holbridge. The bus stop going Rayleigh bound is about here on this scale before you get to the development up there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Wilson, one more time.
Sorry, it was just to clarify Mr Stranks' point. There's actually a bus stop in Holbridge Road. So if you come round the junction, it's about, I don't know, 100 metres from... Where done it?
Does that help? Sorry.
We'll go Holbridge Road the other way, near the rail cut. So up to the west, turn around the corner, come south. So if you come see it across, come down. I don't know if it can help me with that. Here's something.
Yeah. You get the gist.
Can you see? If you see just where it says Holbridge Road, the first bit, just to the right of it, there appears to be a little bit of...
Yeah.
It's a roundabout there.
Okay. Right, thank you. Councillor Weston?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just another point. I understand you're doing quite a bit with that section. I understand there's a memorial right on that corner. Is anything going to be? Is that going to stay? Is it going to be moved? Or if it's going to be moved, what's going to happen with that?
Chairman, I don't know that there's any plans to move it, but I do believe some of the verge area there will be what I would call shaved off. I don't think it'll be substantial amounts, but the idea is to create enough room within the limits of the highway for the right turn lane. So there'd be less room there, but I think the memorial is set significantly back and won't need to be moved.
Councillor Hawkway?
Thank you, Chairman. Just one question of the officer. Mention been made of the bus stop down Holbridge Road, which is going southbound, and also of the alterations to the junction of Waterloo Lane and Lower Road and Holbridge Road. Does that affect that bus stop in any way, those alterations at all?
Chairman, the bus stop on Holbridge Road down here somewhere, the works proposed that we're talking about right round this corner around here somewhere. Sorry, stay there, Claire. The roundabout that we're talking about, somewhere about here loosely, the planning application, as I just explained, does include through agreement works to improve this junction at Waterloo Lane, but they are, I suppose in highway terms, they are with care, because they want to improve it, but they don't want to make it preferable to using Laura's Lane and the big roundabout that will come. So they deliberately avoided the mini roundabout suggestion when the outline application was submitted, and they said we'd rather have these right turn features, but we're not talking about that tonight. They're already approved. They're subject of an agreement. What's happened is the roundabout design that they were going for has had to be altered because of the request for a bus stop. So what that means is that roundabout design, because the consent was so specific, has had to be brought back to you to change the planning consent to reflect the bus stop provision. So because that was something previously dealt with by members, we have to bring that back to you to see if you will agree that change, which before you tonight really is the incorporation of the lay-by with the bus stop. Those other works further down, they've already been agreed with highways.
Thank you.
Okay, want to come back?
Just going back to the bus stop again, I understand what you're saying, it's big enough for the length of the bus stop. My query, you probably always said this, is the width of the bus, because I know full well when buses go and stay in a lay-by, they sort of hang out over the side. Again, is the width wide enough for the bus literally to get in there without hanging over the side? And have we got a duty of care to inform the bus drivers or the company that they've got to go into the lay-by properly without having to half out?
No duty of care, Chairman. Unlike some cases when you're having to retrofit a bus lay-by or improvements into an existing street scene, we've got a clear canvas here. So the Highway Authority has been in discussions with the applicant who are going to be doing the works, and the bus will fit. It's all going to be to modern standards, and as they say in their informal advice, it's all been safety audited. But sometimes I concede you do get problems if you're trying to drop down a revised bus stop detail in an existing street, and you perhaps haven't quite got the room, and it's just about enough, but yes, you do get the problems when the tail of the bus might be out a little bit. Of course, if you make the provision and a nice wide lay-by, there's nothing to stop a driver for whatever reason perhaps stopping short. Maybe he's obstructed, maybe somebody had pulled into the bus stop ahead of him and then drove off, so while he's alighting passengers, he's still stuck. Those things perhaps happen, but it's my understanding this is all to the required designs and spec that's required of a modern bus stop.
That's fine, I understand that. Question you just brought up when you said it could be a lorry in the bus, and the bus comes up and you can't get in properly. Is there a way that a sign can be put up to say bus only without?
I think
I'm
we're
asking
getting
silly
into
questions, I know,
into the
but-
grounds of highways management. This is about planning permission, and yeah, there's lots of things we'd say about drivers that would improve our lives, but they're not part of our decision tonight. Councillor Steptoe, you wanted to come back.
No, my point's been covered.
Okay, thank you. Well, last time, Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Chair. It follows on from the diagram here, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but this is informal comments from Essex Highways, and they're saying in the third paragraph in the addendum that the only reason that they can give for not moving the lay-by to the east of the roundabout is the fact that it's going to be too close to other bus stops. By having the lay-by to the west of the roundabout, what you see now, and it's the point that Councillor Weston was sort of alluding to, they've actually got to come out and cross 2 lanes to go ahead. So if you look there, the bus pulls in, stops at the bus stop, comes to pull out. It's now going to cross 2 lanes because the bus will be going ahead. And I just wonder, with the informal comments that are here, have they really thought enough about this?
Hey members, what we've got to remember is that the application before us is the addition of the bus stop in that location. There's lots of views that members have got about highways, as is always the case. However, we've had reported that the design has been Essex Highways have been part of the consultation, and the arriving at this design in the first place is a blank canvas and meets all the appropriate standards. And in informal comments, Essex do say that they are happy with what is in front of us, and they are the statutory highway authority. So members, the recommendation is for approval with the detail as printed and shown in front of us. Can I have those members in favour please indicate? Thank you. Those against? Okay, that item is approved. Thank you. Thank you. Our next item is the same land in Windermere Avenue, Mallions Lane, Lower Road, Holmbridge. And Mr. Stranks is going to present this one as well.
Thank you, Chairman. This one is more complicated only because you'll see on the agenda that you had, we were recommending what amounts in simple terms to a refusal, but we was recommending that the condition survive. But you'll see from the addendum, given the objections raised by the Highway Authority, we're changing that advice. Now, as previously, it relates to the outline permission that I previously described. It's the subject of condition 38 of that consent, which required the provision in the reserve matters of a bridle path. Now, in the pre-application process that we went through, the applicants did advise us that they didn't expect the county council to adopt the bridle path. They'd had preliminary discussions with them about that, and we said to them, well, that seems okay then if county are going to not going to support that, and the applicant would still need to make a technical application, which is now before you right now, to revoke that condition, to do away with it in the outline consent. And the process would be, if you agreed that, the outline would be issued minus condition 38, so the requirement would go away. Members will see from the report that the bridle path was required as part of the development plan provisions. Your allocations document required a number of things, one of which was the provision of bridleway links. And at the time of writing the report that you've seen so far, until the addendum, the County Highway Authority advice was not known, and officers began to think, well, it was a maintenance issue, and the legal agreement that covers the outline application, that makes provision for the maintenance of the open spaces, the footways, the bridleways, etc. They're all covered. However, members will see that on the addendum, the County Highway Authority, yes, they do maintain the view about maintenance, but they do raise an important highway safety issue. You'll see that in addition to concerns that it would attract riders to an area where there's like no way out other than a circulatory route, which may then force them onto footpath 2, which comes through the site. And the highway rules are such that you can't ride a horse on a footway, on a footpath, but you can actually walk on a bridleway. So it does bring people into conflict. But the situation is that the Highway Authority anticipate that by attracting horses to a suburban edge of settlement development like this, you're bringing those riders into conflict with traffic that are associated with all these households, and that inevitably leads to danger. There would be, as the way the outline permission is written, a separate bridleway. There would be a separate track, but then there's noise and disturbance. Horses are flight animals, and things like this that they say it just doesn't work. They require developments to link one bridleway to another one. So you put together the pieces of the jigsaw. So because this scheme would not connect, it would effectively form a circulatory route to nowhere effectively, they don't support it, not just for the maintenance reasons which are covered, but because of the safety problems that would be created by attracting horses to this development. So officers have now had to give that weight, as indeed we're advising you as members making a final decision to give that weight. And the reason, because of highway safety, we have changed our view to one of supporting the applicant's application to revoke that condition. Now, if we look at the definitive footpath map, members will see that the bridleways in the area, they're all sporadically around. You've got those around here in the sort of plotlandy areas. We've got our own public open space, Swain Park down here with a bridleway around it. And you can also ride on byways here at Long Lane and at Blountwood Road, but you'll see all of those are connected by stretches of road. Here we see footpath 2 going through the site. The site of what we're talking about with the outline permission is in here. Now, since we produced the addendum, we have had a letter of objection from the British Horse Society, and I'll read that to you, that they identified that when the outline application was responded to, they cited the need for equestrians and cyclists in the area, that provision was required, as well as general aims of improving cycling and riding. It is essential in their view for the inclusion of off-road routes for both cyclists and equestrians, and to establish links with the bridleway network. They criticise the statement by the applicant that there is this lack of connectivity, which I'm showing you, and they actually go on to say that they're in investigations as to whether this this footway here could potentially be an ancient bridleway. But that hasn't come forward in the County Council's representations to us. The Public Rights of Way officer, through our colleagues at County Highways, is very strong about the potential for riders to get into here and then possibly feel obliged to ride along the footway network. That wouldn't be true of them all by any means, but there might be a temptation which would basically be illegal. So taking that together with the main concern that district officers have about horses and urban traffic being in conflict, we've changed our recommendation to you as set out on the addendum to one of approving the application by way of not like a approval and refusal you usually see, but by accepting the deletion of condition 38. Effectively, the outline permission would be reissued without condition 38 requiring the bridleway to be provided. I hope that's clear, Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison's going to speak on this one again.
Good evening again. Apologies, I didn't introduce myself fully last time. My name is Ray Houghton, and I'm the Head of Planning for Barratt Eastern Counties. This application as it's been explained, relates solely to the removal of a condition attached to the outline consent. The proposal does not relate to the removal of an existing bridle path, as none currently exists. Nor does the proposal relate to the removal of the existing public right-of-way, number 2, as we would seek to retain that unchanged and incorporate it within the wider provision of public open space, and indeed a fully integrated approach to landscaping. The proposal seeks to replace the previously proposed bridle path with a circulatory footpath, with connections beyond the site to increase accessibility to the wider community, including all the services and facilities that Hullbridge can provide. The expectation that a residential development should provide a bridle path where one currently doesn't exist is, in my view, unreasonable and entirely unrelated to the development proposed. In the context of the use of the validity of the use of planning conditions, it is unrelated to a residential development, but of greater concern is the views of County Council, the county highways, that the bridle path as proposed would otherwise be unsafe and is a hazard to road users, simply because of the conflict, I think, with horse riders and vehicular traffic. And of course, we do agree with this view, and the views of the statutory consultee were taken into account all the way through the evolution of the plans. And this has been going on for almost a year now, and we've always made explicit our intention to provide a circulatory, high-quality footpath and cycle path throughout the site. It was Essex Highways' suggestion that we amend the layout to include the widening of a footpath, which is on the main crescent, which is not part of this application before you tonight, but I think it's important that we show in the context that an existing footpath will be widened to become a cycle route as well. So that provides that cycle connectivity from Lower Lane all the way through the site onto Mallions Road. That will be a safer alternative than cyclists currently have in negotiating the roundabout, for example, at the bottom of Ferry Road. The circulatory footpath, as we propose, would be fully landscaped, as I mentioned, to provide an attractive green route around the site. And this would be of benefit to a wider group of people, not just horse riders, but also cyclists and people wanting to make use of the youth provision that we're providing as part of the wider application. So I ask respectfully that you approve the proposal as recommended so that highway safety is upheld and the design parameters of the approved outline throughout the pre-application consultation can also be delivered in terms of pedestrian connectivity. We've worked closely with a wide number of stakeholders to ensure the development as seen is an interconnected extension of Hullbridge, which provides access to high quality open space for the widest community groups possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Mr. Hoy again.
Thank you, Chairman. I was in two minds about this originally, and I was one of the people who Mr. Houghton consulted, and I think I said at that point that I was in favour of the footpath. Since that time, I have been amazed by the number of people within the horse riding community who've approached me about this footpath and bridleway and pointed out how key they see it to be within the community. Obviously, living in Hullbridge, we are aware that there are quite a few horses around, and we probably don't realise it in relation to other areas. It's not uncommon at all to be driving along the road to come across horses, see them down Abbey Road. The other day I was driving along Lower Road and there were some horses, 3 or 4 horses going along Lower Road turning into Watery Lane. I feel that Essex Highways have misunderstood the nature of Hullbridge. It is a large settlement, becomes larger. Most people living there regard it as a village and a rural settlement. It is in a rural setting. There are fields around it on 3 sides with a lot of horses being kept. There is a river to the north, which fair enough, the horses aren't going to go in. There's actually a Cook's Carriages further up who quite well known for horse-drawn carriages with horses, obviously. And this is seen by the horse riding community as an addition to the bridleway network. Just because it doesn't directly connect doesn't mean it isn't useful, and it would take horses off of the main road network, and that's how they see that, and that's what I would like the members to think about tonight. Thank you.
That's Mrs. Hoy. Do you wish to say anything? Okay. This is the last item tonight, so we don't need to call you in again afterwards. Councillor Hazelwood, do you wish to say anything?
Yes. What I will say is that under the current law, cyclists are not allowed on footpaths. There are huge amounts of horses riding on public footpaths together with cyclists, which are completely destroying the footpaths and not allowing the people who legitimately want to use them from using them. So I would personally encourage members to allow horse riders on this new estate, because it encourages them to use what is there. Unfortunately, footpath 2, if you don't allow horses on this development, they will simply use footpath 2 and completely destroy it. So personally, I think we should encourage horse riders to go off the main highways onto designated paths, which will be safe for them and safe for cars and lorries, because it keeps them off the main highways. As Councillor Hoy said, you look anywhere in Hockley, Rotsford, Hullbridge, there are a huge amount of horse riders, and obviously we should be considering their safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Weston.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to reiterate what our councillors have just said. Yes, we need bridle paths somewhere or other, because we've had accidents on the roads. A few months ago, there was a young girl the horse got killed. She was very, very badly hit by being on the road itself while she was crossing from one road to another. I'd like to reiterate that we need some sort of bridle path. Is there no way we can go back to the drawing board and have a look of which way or how we can help or do this or extend it? I'm not too sure, but I'll reiterate what my councillors have said.
I'll just make the point here that we look at the application that's in front of us. It's not for us to come up with other ideas. Okay, Councillor Steptoe.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, can you put the site plan up on the screen for me? And can you, with your point, just point out where the existing footpath runs through the site? So it's basically an extension of that particular road. Because the road that's coming in from the
public footpath is, extends Mellons Lane through the farm.
Okay.
That wouldn't be the bridle way.
No, but the bridleway that was suggested would come up and join that particular point.
It would probably cross it. We don't know, because obviously the applicant hasn't provided any details, and I believe he would have.
Yeah, okay. I'm afraid I'm with other councillors here. I do feel that we should be providing for the horse fraternity. There is some debate as to whether that footpath is actually a bridleway. That'd be interesting to see how that pans out. But I would perhaps suggest the developer needs to consider talking to the landowner of that particular footpath and see if we can create a permissive route for horses and then link it in two. So I think I would support retaining the bridleway. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman. Something I've got a lot of experience, not with horses, but with cycling, and it's a similar sort of scenario where people say, well, we don't want cyclists in conflict with other road users, and that's true. we don't want to put horses unnecessarily in conflict. But as Councillor Hoy said, you go around Holbridge and there are horses there every day. You see horses going along the byway and they will interconnect onto the bridleway. So I'm in favour of retaining the proposal for the bridleway. Just to give a little bit of a statistic for this, because I think any death on the road is one death too many. But in the period of 2010 to 2017, 38 riders were killed and 220 horses were killed. So although that is a really bad statistic, this isn't some sort of epidemic where horses are being, and their riders are being killed all the time. So I think the danger is being overstated. And I do think that I would move for refusal.
Okay. Councillor Hookway.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Stranks mentioned about one of the was it a late comment from the was it the Hawke Society? Yeah, and they stated that they had a belief that footpath might be historic bridleway. Have they provided any further information or evidence to back up that?
Not to us, Chairman. They give the impression that it's a matter that they are investigating, but equally in the comments from the Highway Authority that you now have, the Public Rights of Way Office is behind that, and they have not alluded to this possibility at all. They are very concerned about the safety aspects. Yes, they go on, as members have discussed, about the abuse of the footway network and riders almost like being forced indirectly to ride on footways. That's one concern, but the other concern they have is introducing bridleways in with suburban traffic. We've mentioned about accidents. They're seeing that you're putting those two incompatible activities together, and that is what's made district officers change the advice and position they have.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I come back?
Yeah. Go on.
I mean, there was an argument about connectivity and making sure that that bridleway isn't just sort of like to a dead end or just a, doesn't particularly go anywhere. But if that bridleway was connected up to footpath 2 and that was improved for a horse accessibility, it would provide an appropriate route off the highway.
Chairman, the footway 2 here, which is still relatively disconnected to other, there's no bridleways out this way. The bridleways we have are in this vicinity around like these Plotland roads, and then just a short hop down Downhill Park Way, we have the ride around Swain Park. And then if you go the other way with these two roads, you come down Blount's-Wood, up Church Road, up through Folly Lane, and then you're a short hop again to a circular ride around Hockley Woods. But I think the nature of the bridleways are that they're in fragmented locations connected by main roads. The point that the County Highway Authority is saying is you're attracting riders to this facility in yet another fragmented location. You're bringing them in conflict with traffic, and you're potentially encouraging them to use footways, as was raised earlier. They just feel strong enough that they must object to you, and hopefully I've set that out and made that clear before you make your decision.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just have confirmation? This isn't replacing an existing bridleway. This is a brand new bridleway. My concern is that horse riders would be encouraged to use that roundabout to gain access to it. And why this development? Why do we not have bridleways on all other developments? It just, to me, I have to say, seems to be it will create more problems than it will solve, I feel.
Chairman, if we stay on this map a moment, you'll be aware that we had another housing scheme not dissimilar to this, similar number of dwellings connecting between Rorath Lane and London Road, and that is not far from that network there or the bridleway around the open space. But the County Highway Authority took the same view. Indeed, that's what informed the applicants for this site in the pre-app process when they came to us and said they don't think the Highway Authority is going to support the bridleway that we've asked for by condition on this site we're now talking about, because of that risk, not just the connectivity but the conflict. What they're looking for ideally is a bridleway link that, if you like, takes horses away into an environment that's away from traffic and away from that conflict, and that's why they won't support it. What we're doing here, we've got a condition that attracts the riders into an environment where they're going to meet traffic. Yes, they would have a dedicated path riding separate from the vehicles, but you're still bringing them into that location as they get on and off that path, as they cross the streets and things in the layout. There's that risk which they must safeguard against.
Do you want to come back then?
Thanks. Can I just reiterate, horses ride quite legally on the roads. Now, obviously, we don't want them to go in conflict with traffic, but there's already 4,000 houses in Holbridge, and this is only another 500. So what's the particular risk for these 500 houses having horses riding around them for the other 4,000 houses in Holbridge?
I can understand why the need, the wish for a bridle path came in. It was open land. It's going to be developed now, and perhaps it was seen as a substitution for some of the loss of the open space that potentially was available, and there were some equestrian activities in the vicinity. But I see us having a wish to promote all sorts of activities around the district, quite rightly: horse riding, cycling, walking, running, the whole package. But I think we do have a responsibility. There was recently an event around Hockley Woods where some horses, a group of riders, took to the road to try and promote awareness of riders and horses and how they work together. And it was a good event, but nevertheless, it did cause a lot of problems and did highlight the particular issues. Now, you're quite right, Councillor Wilson, that there are plenty of occasions when horses are on the road, but in terms of the number of horses that are out there in ownership and being used, it's relatively few that do venture out on the road. I also do a considerable number of miles on my bike, and you exercise extreme caution when you come across a horse. I think this issue isn't so much about our willingness to support horse riding wherever it may be. I think it does boil down to the safety issue. And having and encouraging horses into a new area, an urban area where horses, cyclists, walkers, families, children are going to be in close proximity, you have to put the weight to the different arguments. And I found this a really challenging one. But on balance, I think I'm coming down on the side of safety. And I'm not going to be able to support putting riders in such close proximity to situations of hazard when there are other facilities around. And I think this would be not only providing opportunity for risk, but also inviting in from a wider area the opportunity for risk. So it's a difficult one. It's a balance of argument thing. But for me, on balance, I think I'm happy to support the application for deletion. One of the things that what was in my mind was when Mr. Houghton particularly mentioned the widening of footpaths. So it's not just loss of one facility without any recompense. We have got some recompense in that the facilities for pedestrians and maybe cyclists, if you cycle off road, are enhanced. So that's where I'm lying on this one. So you mentioned refuse, Councillor Wilson. I think in this case, if the what's before us, the officer's recommendation, is not accepted, which I'll move, then the status quo of the bridle remains, is my understanding. Yeah.
As explained, I think, at the beginning of this meeting, Chairman, it's not quite an approval and refusal situation. What you have to think of, the mindset with these, is that you're changing a condition. You can see that the recommendation before you from officers is the one that's on the addendum, which is that the condition be deleted. But if you were to decide otherwise, the condition that exists on the outline is now somewhat technically defunct because it required these details to be submitted in the past. So you'll see that the equivalent of a refusal is the first officer recommendation you have, which is on the agenda, which recasts the condition to word it that they would have to provide these details at a time in the future. I think it may say prior to first occupation of any dwellings or to allow them to start work, etc. So it wouldn't be a case as it was on the first application that if you were to say no, then the bus lay-by and the bus stop wouldn't get provided, would go back to the drawing that was approved. In this case, if you're saying no, you have to reword condition 38 so that the requirement of condition 38 could still be achieved, and that is drafted for you on the first officer recommendation. But just to be clear, the recommendation officers are giving you, which you've discussed, I hope members understand clear, is to completely omit condition 38. But the decision obviously is down to members. Thank you.
Okay. So members, I'm going to move the revised recommendation as printed on page 6 of the addendum, which effectively is deleting condition 38, which is the requirement for the bridle path. Okay. Everyone happy with what we're voting on, what this means?
Sorry, Chairman, on a matter of order, there was a proposal. It didn't get seconded, but then no seconder was requested.
So I've moved on. So this is where we are now. Members, those members in favour of the revised recommendation as are printed on page 6 of the addendum, please indicate. 6. Those against. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's okay. Thank you. So the recommendation to approve the deletion of the bridle path is approved, and the other tranche of recommendations is taken as part of that. Yeah. Okay. Right. That's it. Thank you. 2 particularly technical ones tonight. Thank you very much for your time, attendance and concentration.